What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 71st episode of the Balanced Business Podcast. As always, we have Larissa, Justine, Nico, and a very special guest, Andreas, here today. Team, what's up? How are we feeling today?
Good.
We're good.
Yeah, actually joining you on the Starbucks game today, so gonna be a fun one. Well, as I mentioned, we have a special guest, Andreas. Andreas has been with us for about 2.5, almost 3 years. Actually, when we started the company, he got roped into working with us, and we've been annoying him ever since. So he's seen us go through a lot of iterations, but honestly, one of the best guys that I've ever met. Oh, and you like baseball? I mean, that's a pretty big thing. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think we covered most of it. Yeah, I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm digging into that every day.
So he's not thinking about landscapers; he's thinking about baseball. So benefits to both. But Justine, why is Andreas here? What are we talking about today?
Yeah, we thought he would be the perfect guest to talk about this topic today, which is what are the building blocks to a successful ad? So what are some things that people need to have before they can have a successful ad campaign? So we're going to talk about 4 different points here. The first one being a compelling offer. So anyone wants to kick this off? Why is having a good offer so important?
I don't know, Andreas. I think you can, because you've seen offers, really good ones, really poor ones in the last 3 years. So, what do you think? What in your mind? Why is offer so important?
Well, I mean, the idea of the offer is just to catch someone's attention, right? We want to sell more. I think we all love winter offers, summer offers. We all rush for them. So I think that's the main focus there on the offer, trying to get our audience to buy our product and services.
Yeah, it definitely creates a sense of urgency, especially when, if we think about an offer at large, it's a lot of how do you convince somebody right now that now's the best time? How do you package your services that you offer to make it really compelling?
Yeah, and to that point too, is an offer isn't necessarily always a discount. What Andreas was mentioning about timely thing, right? They're in the winter, you're probably not thinking about what you're going to be doing in the fall, right? Because the fall is just habit, right? You might have good memories about it, but you're probably thinking about the spring or summer. Or here in Phoenix, you can't wait for the fall, right? So you wouldn't always be anchoring on a time thing, right? Memorial Day weekend's coming up, but there's always holidays like 4th of July, Christmas. You can always anchor the offer with something seasonal, right? So really, without even having to give discounts or doing anything different, you could stand out from the crowd by having, for instance, now it's May going to June, it's summertime, right? So you shouldn't be running winter offers because that doesn't really make sense, because you could be saying the same thing, but just because you anchor as winter, you could be completely different from what it actually is. So yeah, I think time of day, season, holidays, for instance, I'm still seeing Mother's Day, and I respect all mothers. Don't get me wrong. I think we all love our mothers, but you probably shouldn't be running Mother's Day ads now.
Yeah, they should be running Father's Day.
Yeah, because that's coming up, right?
So. Yeah, next month, huh?
I'm not a father, so
Are there any other aspects to that each offer kind of has any guidelines for the specific offer, regardless of what time of year you're running it, or any examples of good offers you've ran or seen in our day to day?
I mean, it's a really good question, but taking a step back, right, before making the offer, right, niche offer message sales, right? So go to the niche, right? What matters to homeowners, right? Saving money, huge thing. Reducing risk of something failing. Not saying that you want to play to the fear, but I mean that's the one route to do it. If you're a renter, you're probably less worried about your AC unit going out, right? But you might be if someone ran an offer to buy a house, right? That might appeal to renters. So there's so many there's so many different routes to go. Larissa, Andreas, I would actually like to hear from you guys, because there's so many there's so many ways to slice this apple. There's no, yeah, there's no like one thing, right? Because every market, every person, every niche is a little different. So I don't know if you guys want to add your 2 cents to that.
Well, I definitely don't know that there's like a one golden offer, for example. However, it can be somewhat similar across industries, right? If you are, I'll use like if you do HVAC, for example, other HVAC offers might work for you, which obviously, let's say Kohl's is running a sale and they have all these promotions and stuff going on, you don't necessarily want to take the Kohl's offer. So it's not like there's a one size fits all. But it really comes down to just how do you package your services and goods to create a sense of urgency, to create a sense of, wow, this is amazing, I really need this, or even just, think about how people think of things. And I'm sure everyone here is really, has done these exact same things too, of like, oh, there's $50 off, I better get this right now because that $50 off expires tomorrow, like things like that you see that you're like, oh, okay. Or maybe like, oh, if I get this now, I'll also get this other thing. Or, I'll get this for free, or it will come including this, or, there's a bunch of different ways you can package things. So I would say like be really creative with offers and coming up with offers. And I would just say like, it's really important to test because you might think your offer is great, but not everybody else will. So come up with, I wouldn't say pick one, I would say pick like 5 and test all of those against each other. And I would test maybe one by one or 2 or 3 at a time. But, I would keep that in mind of like a compelling offer. It might take different forms and it might shift and change. What works today might not work in 3 months. People might be more compelled by one thing later than another. So, keeping all that in mind, let the data tell you what the best, most compelling offer is.
A great example is like when you go to buy a plane ticket or something like that, right? Airlines is a great industry to look at because they're always coming up with offers, right? And one thing they do really good, which we're not talking about necessarily, is scalable, especially to like home improvement companies, landscapers, turf installers, is the taking something away, right? So, for instance, if you have like we're going to a wedding in Dallas, which I don't want to pay for. I was seething last night, but that's neither here nor there. So I put it in my cart, and I was like, okay, like I'll get to this in a little bit, right? About 15 minutes later, if that, I got an email saying, hey, only 3 spots left. And I was like, well, there's 2 of us. Well, there's only so many people going to Dallas. Maybe I should commit, right? So I don't think this is always scalable, and maybe that's not your brand, but that is something like they know I'm interested, right? Your client, if you send an invoice, knows that's interested. Maybe the fear of losing something could be the offer, right? I wouldn't say lead with that, but definitely like look at your daily life, like look what you buy, and the like scarcity is a great selling point in that. So.
Yeah, I'd say time frame is also a good one. I say guarantees or warranties convince a lot of people, especially with landscapers and home renovation kind of industries. People love to hear 5-year, 10-year warranty or 90-day guarantee, stuff like that. That always
Yeah,
convinces people.
that's a good point. Can definitely help. You can structure your offers in such a way that it makes people think about your company differently too. So for example, if you're providing a 15-year warranty, well, in my head, I'm like, well, they're going to be around in 15 years. Like that's a really good warranty and that's awesome. Things like that can be really helpful too in pushing people down the pipeline.
Our next building block, Nico, you touched on this a little bit, but it's having a dedicated, well thought out target audience that you're trying to reach with your ads. So how important is your audience when creating a successful ad campaign?
I will go to my grave yelling and screaming niche offer message sales. And every single time that I've seen people not follow this formula, results vary. Sometimes I'm wrong and it does really well. But oftentimes you get less of a less of a result than if you follow this process. So niche, you have to get clear on why people want certain things. Let's say you do gutter cleaning, right? Why should someone, like, your niche for gutter cleaning, right? Is it, and again, this is overgeneralization, but homeowners, right? Renters could do it, but mostly it's homeowners. Second, it's places and people who have a lot of trees behind them. So cities might not be, like, homeowners in cities might not be your target. Maybe it's suburbs, right? Maybe people in parts of the country that have a lot of trees. Here in Arizona, I don't think that gutter cleaning is that important, right? Because we don't have that many trees that go above the house and gets in there. Now, somewhere in like the South, like let's say Atlanta, for instance, that might be a big thing. Or the Northeast, that might be a big thing, right? Because if you sell a product to someone that doesn't need it, right? You don't know your niche, just blanket marketing, then that doesn't make sense. Plus, you have to realize that most people or some people cannot afford what you have, and that's okay. You should, in your filtering, be able to filter those people out because you're not doing them a service by showing them something that they want but can't afford, right? So niche is incredibly important because if you don't know it, then you might just be saying blanket statements that don't really resonate. Like if I talk to Andreas baseball, I'm getting through like 3 sentences before I know nothing. Like he said to teach me that the Yankees is New York. You know what I'm saying? I might miss that up too. It could be Boston. Like I don't know. I think the Red Sox is Boston. I watched The Big Short once. So or Moneyball. I always get those confused. But like I can't.
That's a big.
Yeah,
like,
Big Short's not a baseball movie.
Fighting words, but with that being said, like I can't speak the language, so I can't relate baseball to him. So like, if we engage in the conversation and I'm trying to sell him baseball tickets, like what if I bring up like the Clippers, which I think is basketball, right? And that's on the other side of the country. He's gonna instantly lose respect, and I'm gonna lose credibility. So making the sales process already harder before we even talk logistics.
Yeah, I definitely like to think of knowing your target audience from a really, let's say, like practical lens, I suppose. It's more of why waste time, effort, money on reaching people who aren't your ideal customer. Like, to me, that's one of the biggest incentives to really know your target audience is, let's say, I pay 10 cents for every eyeball that sees my ad, for example. Well, I really don't want to be spending 10 cents per eyeball that's not a qualified eyeball. Like if you think about it in that kind of lens, in a very, selfish monetary lens, your target audience is really huge because if it's not the right person, you're just wasting money and time and effort, and it's not going to get through because they're not the right person. So if you think about it in a really, honing in on efficiency kind of way, it doesn't make sense to not know your target audience because it's going to lead to so much waste in other areas that you could be using those resources, whatever they may be, so much more effectively. But I do want to note specifically in the context of ads, you can't always pick exactly who you're reaching out to. It's very different than, let's say, like cold outbound, where you're building a specific list of like, these are the exact people I am reaching out to. And that can be really targeted, really effective in a lot of ways. But with ads, if you don't control the platform, you often don't have control over that particular piece. Now, that doesn't mean knowing your target audience isn't helpful because you can't control exactly who it goes in front of a lot of the time. It means you have to make sure that audience is called out in your creative and what they are saying. That way they know, like, hey, this is specific for these people. And then the ad platforms will automatically optimize based on who is interacting with it, right? So that's why it's really important to know your audience, build your creative for that audience if you're using ad platforms and you're using just totally organic reach, because then the ad platforms will optimize for those specific people based on characteristics it sees in common between them that you might not even see. So keep that in mind, that knowing your target audience isn't just about targeting per se, in terms of like maybe where you place things or whatever and who you exclude and include. It's also a lot about like when somebody sees an ad, you want them to think this is for me. And that's a really important part of the creative process and understanding your target audience.
Sweet. Um, Speaking of the creative process, our next building block is having good photos and videos to use in your ads. So let's kind of talk about why this is so important and what we recommend to landscapers.
I feel like Andres probably has horror stories
Yeah,
at this point.
I'm about to say this is an Andreas and Justine topic right here.
Yeah, we've gotten clients where they've sent over pictures and videos that poor quality, like it's blurry, it's videos too much movement, it's a mess. Like it's
But Andreas, that should work, right?
one of
You
those
just
things-
asked for pictures. Like, why does my blurry picture impact results, Andreas? What do you mean?
I mean, if you can't see the quality of work, how do you share it with the rest of the people? So it's very important how the image looks in front of, especially in an ad, right? Everyone loves to eat with their eyes, so.
That's true.
Yeah, especially for like what you're selling to, you want that to be in the actual picture, right? Like if the ad isn't selling the patio, don't really focus on a picture of the patio, focus on the turf or whatever it is that, you're trying to sell. You want the images to match your ad campaigns. And you do want them to be clear and focused and have great lighting. And it's really not that difficult to take great pictures. People are scared of photography, but I feel like anyone can be a photographer. Like everyone has amazing cameras right in their pockets. Like use those tools that you have available. You don't need some fancy equipment to take these amazing videos and pictures. Like you can do this just with what's in your pocket. So don't be scared to take photos of your work. It is very helpful to our team.
But let's be perfect example, right? So throughout this week, we have a new client that hasn't been really sharing that much content with us, right? So in the week, we've generated 3 leads, which is very low for what we have. Andreas has been hounding this person for weeks to get us new content.
Yeah.
Got new content yesterday, launched ads, and it's been live for 11 hours and it's generated 3 leads. Like I'm looking at it right now. So everything stayed the same, but the pictures, right? Because we didn't really have that many to start with. It's a very specific area in the U.S. and we can use things that we already had for this, right? But how do you go from 4 days of running ads, getting 1 lead-ish a day, right? 0.7, right? So let's just say 1 lead a day, to 3 in 1 day, just based on the creative. Like nothing else changed, no targeting, nothing. So it just shows you that there's actually a monetary value in more videos, more pictures, more creative. That's just like one, and literally this is Andres' account. I'm looking at it right now. So
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's also, I do know certain accounts move, we get more leads more towards the end of the week than the start of the week. But for example, this client just got 3 today. So it's one of those things where creative does matter. I think images have a bigger impact than videos. Because I think when we scroll for ads on Instagram or Facebook, we most of the time just skip them, right? So a long video or even a 10-second video might not catch the viewer's attention. But with that said, I do think some of the videos we've been running, especially the ones that show a rundown of the whole area they've been working on, walking around, there may be a bit of equipment and some supplies in a corner. Like that doesn't matter as long as you're showing the work and the quality of the work that you're doing. Of course, that's not blurry and it's very visible.
absolutely.
Yeah, and to that point, like especially with like photos and videos, when you think of your creative, Andres laid it out perfectly. Think of the ads you get targeted with and what makes you stop, right? That's the whole goal of an ad campaign, right? So you want to have a compelling offer that gets somebody to act quickly. You want to make sure you're reaching the right person. But if I'm that person, if I'm the right person and I'm ready to buy, I just need something to make me stop. So you need something that's just going to catch someone's attention. And that's why you need great photos and videos, because what's going to catch my attention if it's something that's out of focus, that maybe I'm not even sure what is being sold? And Justine alluded to this earlier. If you're not selling a patio, you don't necessarily need to include the patio so much, right? Or maybe if you want to think of it as like, let's say a whole backyard remodel, if that's the product you're selling, you want to make sure it looks great. Like somebody could picture themselves living there. And that's what you want. That's what makes us stop, is to be like, ooh, you know, that could be me right there. That could totally work for me, for my situation. And there's other things that can go along with that. But I would say if you're unsure and you're working with an agency, take photos of everything. They will parse out what's good and bad. If you don't feel like you have that creative eye to be able to make someone stop, literally take photos and videos of everything and send it over. Worst case, you have too much. That's the best worst case ever, right? Like
And that's not even a
having too
problem.
much content to pick from, you know?
Dream,
So
right?
even if it's not amazing, and you don't have to necessarily worry about post-production editing, a lot of those things can be handled by your team, but take photos, take videos, make everyone else's life easier, and give them as many tools as possible to help you be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Could
As
not
you can
agree
tell,
more.
this is a sore subject for all of us.
Yeah.
We are passionate. That's for sure. Another thing we're super passionate about here on our team is follow-ups. So an ad isn't successful if you don't actually follow up with the leads that you generate from it. So let's kind of talk about the importance of having a good follow-up sequence and why we are so passionate about this.
Yeah, I feel like every podcast I talk about this, like the money isn't made in the leads, right? So I a very controversial individual that I follow, really his philosophy is like leads. There's no such thing as lead quality. Now I don't 100% agree with that because I think lead quality is important, but the best lead quality comes from the leads that you work, right? You increase lead quality the more you work them, because earlier in the process you can eliminate people who are maybe tire kickers, maybe just shopping around, maybe not really that interested, like the idea of turf, but they don't want to install turf like right now, right? As you go down the pipeline, your quality should increase because you're starting to like weed down into focusing on just the best type of leads, right? So, we have this across the board. The more times, it's a weird correlation, but the more times you follow up, the more estimates you get, and the more deals you close. Like we have enough data to support that, both internally as well as what we're seeing with clients. So, what's a good rule of thumb? At least call them or text them or get in communication with them within 5 minutes of them coming into your pipeline. Anything longer than that, we've talked about, I think in the last two podcasts, every minute after that, they get colder and colder and colder. So let's say you get a lead on Monday. If you follow up on Wednesday afternoon, that person might have already bought from someone. That's way too long. And if you can't do that, you don't have the capabilities to do it, use automation in some type of way to at least acknowledge that you received the message from the individual. So first 5 minutes, they have to hear back from you, at least, right? Got to call them in the first day, preferably twice and at different points, right? So you don't want to always call at 9 o'clock because maybe that's when they're walking to the office. So change your variations on calling. At least call twice a day for the next 5 business days, right? Text at least for the first 10 days, right? After the first 5 days, you can start, emailing and using other mechanisms, but you gotta follow up with leads. There's no other secret around that.
Yeah, and I will say this goes for any kind of marketing, not just ads. Anybody that you're talking to, you need to be actively talking to. You don't want to be ghosting people. That's not a good look for you or your company, or it doesn't make somebody interested in working with you, because who's going to be like, oh yeah, no, I've got this guy, he hasn't texted me back in like 5 days, so I guess I don't really know where that stands. Like that's not a compelling reason for somebody to give you money, right? If we're thinking about all of this in a business context, is really like, if you're not responsive, that brings you and your company down a notch right away.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you have to do it. I don't know. There's nothing else around it.
I mean, I'd say bug them until they tell you no or take a hike. I mean, like, of course they could always answer in a rude manner, but what's the worst they could do? To just say no.
Yeah.
So just move on.
And I think it does stem from like people don't have enough time. That's where automation can help. Definitely talk to us. Email me at nico@getboundsmedia.com and I'll show you a couple hacks to do it. Sometimes a lot of people are just a little frightened, And I really think it's because um, we don't want to be annoying salespeople. We don't want to come off as like pushy. But here's the thing: if someone reaches out to you, you're doing them a disservice by not trying to help solve their problem. And you can make the argument like, oh, turf is not really a problem, but it saves them money. It's something that they want, right? Um, if you don't go to the hospital for fun, or at least I don't. You go there to solve a problem, right? People come there and they know that. And we have to see ourselves as landscapers as the same, right? People are coming to us to solve a problem, right? There is so much value in not having to worry about or having, like, for instance, like a lot of people get artificial turf because they don't want to mow their grass. They don't want to wake up early on a Saturday or Sunday and mow it. They want that time to relax. That's quantifiable. Like you being able to sleep in and relax, not have to worry about a chore. For instance, I still have PTSD about homework assignments. When Sunday evening comes around, I'm like, oh, like did I submit my assignment? I'm like, I've been out of school for 4.5, 5 years. People are the same way, right? That sense of calm, there's real monetary value in it, and we can help solve it. So you're doing them a service by following them. You're not being annoying. They'll tell you to stop, you know? So just keep following up. Oh, that was a nice little rant for this Friday.
I feel like this is almost like a therapy session for us at this point. Where we're like, do this, please. It makes our life so much easier.
My definition of a rant is different. But this is Nico rant.
Okay. Love it.
Nico's just always nice, even when he's ranting.
Yeah.
It's like I want you to make money. I don't know, like you guess I'm a bad guy, you know? So.
Is there anything else we missed or any other advice, Andres, that you want to give to our audience before we wrap it up today?
I say just test different options, look at the data, and then trust the data.
Words to live by.
And follow up. I should add that in there.
Exactly.
And take pictures.
Yeah, take pictures. We don't ask for that much, but when we do, you know, we try to make it simple. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. Andres, thank you for being here. Team, it's always a pleasure. And if you guys have any questions or you're looking to grow your landscaping business, go to our YouTube channel, boundlessmedia.com. You'll see tons and tons of videos like this. Or email me at nico@boundlessmedia.com. Boundlessleads.com is our website. And let's go get those leads, follow up with them, close the deals, take pictures, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.